All right, welcome to week 3, everybody, of creative presentation work. And we'll get started here. All right, so when you want to make a big impact, like you see here, right, you need a good story. So the compelling story is why people will listen to you. So creating a good, compelling story makes people want to listen. It engages people. Stories are a way that we learn. It's a great way to learn. It ties in emotion to whatever point you're trying to get across. So our best storytellers are the ones that usually succeed out there in life. Like Dan Pink, the great political speechwriter and author, says, the best storyteller always wins the political race. So if you really want to make an impact, come up with a compelling story. We all have stories. So another thing you want to think about is every audience that you're going to work with is very diverse, right? Every audience is going to be different. Even within that audience, you're going to have a very diverse, field of people to work with. So you have to pay attention to the individuals in the room. When you focus on the audience, it helps you to say, okay, you know what? People are really disengaged right now. Maybe I should tell a story. Or people are really disinterested right now, or they look confused. Maybe I should give some more examples here. Or maybe I should talk about some other element because maybe I'm going too slow, or I'm really just beating on one point here and I need to move on. So you want to focus on the different audience members and actually look at them just like you're having a conversation with someone. You want to look at them for their reaction, their nonverbals, and see if they're listening, if they're interested, if it makes sense. So just make sure that the examples and the stories that you bring to your presentation meet the audience where they already are. So if you're talking to an audience of maybe baby boomers, they're going to be very different than millennials, right? You'll want to have different types of stories, probably. Even when you're talking about television or movies, the media, you would want to tailor it to that generation, right? So age is a factor. Also, is this a group of sororities, or maybe they're more sport-oriented people? Is this a church group or a civic group? Is this a group of intellectuals or engineers? Right. So you need to think about what type of audience is this, and what kind of stories are going to connect to them. Okay, so let me know if you have questions as we go here. I'll go back to the chat box every once in a while. All right, so like I was saying earlier, tell stories. Personal experiences are the best way to tell stories. The ability to connect that story to the message you're giving is key to getting the audience to connect and really understand. So I always like to say a presentation is like a cake, right? And you might have got that from Miss Stewart as well, from your Resonate book. You have to layer a presentation like a cake, right? You have two extremes with a presentation, right? And presentation actually lays in the middle. You have the report, right, that you're doing the research, the report, the statistics, the facts, and then you have the story dramatization, right? And these are like two extreme, different types of elements, right? And you're going to take both of these elements and you're going to make them into a presentation. So presentation sits right in the middle of the cake, right? You have the report at the bottom, right? The boring foundational stuff, but then you have the story and dramatization, which is the icing on the top. And what you do then is you want to sprinkle your presentation with facts and statistics and information that they need. And within all of that, you want to back up each of those report type elements with dramatization and story, example, stuff that really can tie emotion into it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole thing here in this presentation today. So we have right here a wonderful quote. My story is of such marvel that if it were written with a needle on the corner of an eye, it would yet serve as a lesson to those who would seek wisdom. And that's anonymous, Tales from 1001 Nights. Anyways, Your story, is the optimal way to engage people. It has meaning. It creates meaning, right? So when you're planning, make sure you're looking at, your report stuff and then adding story to your report information. So you want to tell the story behind the data. It creates a rhythm in your presentation. Just like, a movie has scenes in it, and each scene is 3 minutes, right? So you need to have, data, right? Information, and then within that, story, example underneath it. So you want to have your presentation sprinkled with data and meaning, both extremes. Another important point is show, don't tell. Right? So showing something is much more powerful than telling. Right? An effective slideshow has images in place of text when possible. Right? So this is a really nice slide, right? You have an image, a person's eye looking, right? I'm going to go back over to the chat box, see if anyone has any questions or anything. Okay, cool, nothing yet. Right, so the flow of your content that you put together should have a good structure to it. And we mentioned this before, but we have what we call a 3-act structure. Duh, right? Beginning, middle, and end. And when that comes down to presentation, right, you have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So let's put the simple 3-act structure into perspective from your last assignment, right? The one that you did, well, I should say your first assignment, the TED Talks, right? You analyzed 3 TED Talks, and then you had to wrap it up with, showing us 10 skills that you learned and that you want to implement in the future. So to organize your TED Talk analysis with this structure, you'd begin with an introduction that previews what we are going to tell them, right? We're going to tell them about this presentation, and this presentation. Or you could say this TED Talk, and this TED Talk. And then I'm also going to tell you about 10 points or skills that, I find the most interesting within these 3 TED Talks. Right? And then the middle would be the actual information about the TED Talks, and the conclusion would be the 10 skills that you pulled from your actual TED Talks. So that would be 3-act structure within that first assignment that you did. Did anyone feel like they really put that into perspective with that first assignment? Go back over here. Did anyone feel like they really nailed it with the 3-act structure on that first assignment, having a nice introduction and then, the meat and then finally the conclusion, wrapping it up with the 10? Okay, Dustin says, not really, but I should have. Tony, somewhat. Yeah, some of you actually did a really good job with the structure. Others, it was a little like, okay, you're on the starting point, but as we move forward in the presentation class, you'll learn more about it and it'll start sticking and you'll get it. Okay, it could have been better. Not at all from 1. Okay, all right. Well, you'll improve as you move forward, and as every week goes by, you'll get better and better by the end of the semester. You'll be ready for your next class. You'll have a good hold on presentation work, hopefully here. Right. So, anyways, you really want to focus on that 3-act structure. Oh, Cortland, yes, it's a little harder for this week's assignment. Okay, Cortland, you wanna ask me any questions about that? Why would you say it's a little harder for this week's assignment? Tell me about that. I can always go up and unmute you if you want. Well, I'll come back to it, Cortland, if you're writing something. Okay, so the 3-act structure is super important for presentation work. Any type of report or presentation work, you really have to go by that 3-act structure. It's the basic structure of even a movie, a story, anything out there. So, beginning, middle, and end. All right, so next point, know when the critical moment is in your presentation. Your best idea that you have for your presentation, your best idea or your best point needs a build up to it. So you don't want to start with your best idea. You want to start with an attention getter, right? And it might be, something interesting like a poem, or it could be music, or it could be a funny story or whatever. But that attention getter at the beginning is not the big idea or the critical moment of persuasion or information for your presentation. Whenever that critical moment comes up, you want to make sure you have a nice build up to it, and then make your point. And it's always good to pause when you make that critical moment point. Right? We call it the star moment. So you need to create a moment where you dramatically drive that big idea home, right? You need a star moment in each presentation. And the star should be, as you can see right here, should be very, it should be something they'll always remember. It should be sincere. It should be enlightening. It should be significant. It should magnify your big idea, not distract from it. So again, it's something they'll always remember. And there are 5 types of star moments. Okay. Let's go over these. All right, you have the memorable dramatization. We have the repeatable sound bites, the evocative visuals, emotive storytelling, and finally the shocking statistic. So the memorable dramatization, these should be, a small prop or a demonstration, right? Could be something funny or exciting. It could be a skit or a reenactment, something dramatic, right? Think music, think poetry, think a prop, And then we have repeatable sound bites. So short, repeatable sound bites help feed the press headlines. It also gives social media channels insights to spread. Like a lot of our people on YouTube that are YouTube personalities, they're really good at this, at creating like repeatable sound bites so people can go tweet their quotes and everything. Here, I'm going to show you an example of someone that does this. First, I'm going to make sure there's no questions. Oh, okay, Corlin, I see. I'm going to come back to that in a second. All right. So this is Marie Forleo. She's a great, presenter, YouTube personality and everything. She talks about business a lot and communication. And what I'm going to show you, this is actually a really good video if you ever want to check her out. But I'm going to show you what she calls tweetable. And this is, a repeatable soundbite. This is a really good idea for a presentation. Let's see. See if I can find it on here. Yeah, I think it's about right here. So I'll just watch the end of it here.
Strategies to help you achieve this tweetable. Communicate powerfully and you'll be taken seriously. That was my A to your QE. I really hope it helps.
So what she did was she built up, and then she made her point, and then she said, this is now a tweetable. So what she did was she reiterated the point with even telling you, hey, pretty much telling you this is a soundbite. This is something, a tweetable, right? So it's something that you can take from her presentation, and it's just like a little soundbite. It's something she said that she thinks is, powerful, but also short enough to be a little soundbite that you could throw out in a headline. You could put it, on social media somewhere as a quote. So that is the idea behind the repeatable soundbite. I'm going to go back over here to Cortland's thing. All right, when I was asking you guys about your applying your the 3 acts into your work, it's a little harder for this week's assignment because I have to do it verbally and time it out, and I don't want to rush. Okay, yeah, you definitely don't want to rush, but that's why you want to rehearse. And when you rehearse, You might have to cut things out. You might have to shorten up your story, take out some examples. You never know. You might be talking too long about some things. And as you rehearse, a lot of times your presentation gets shorter. So if you start out like really long, you're pausing too much, thinking about things, drawing out stories. As you rehearse, you'll make it a lot more succinct, right? It'll become like a very very confident, quicker, shorter type of presentation than it was at the beginning, right? And Leon's asking me, how will we be presenting to you? Now, I'm not sure what you mean, Leon. Okay, cool, Cortland. He said, gotcha. How will we be presenting to you? Do you mean in the final week how you're going to create a presentation? Is that what you're asking me, Leon? That final presentation, it does have to have a voiceover narration. Now, like I was saying a little bit earlier when we started out today, before I started recording actually, I was mentioning you can use SoundCloud, you can use Prezi.com, Prezi.com, to create your presentation. You should have a built-in mic in your computer. If you don't, you can always hook a mic up to it, or you can borrow one from a friend, or you can maybe even look into your local library or your community library at your local college if you need to use some equipment. Or you on your iPhone, if you have like a smartphone or you have a tablet, you can record on those. They have built-in apps with microphones now. So you might have to even record there on like the SoundCloud app or something, and then you can go to your computer and SoundCloud's right there. Prezi is a great one if you'd like to create presentations. You can use it on Prezi. I really like Prezi. I actually use it in some of my other courses that I teach. Does that answer your question, Leon, about how you'll be presenting? You have to get narration into your work. So if you're using slides, you can do that. If you want to use a Prezi, you can. However you want to do it is fine as long as you get the narration together. If you need anything else about that, if you want to talk to me personally, you're welcome to, text me and say, hey, can we talk for 5 minutes, tonight or tomorrow or whenever. I'm always available for you guys. So just let me know. Hopefully that helped though. All right, let's get back to this presentation stuff here, right? And we talked about the first two, right? We have the memorable dramatization and repeatable sound bites. And then we have the evocative visuals. Images can become, emotional links to your information, right? And I kind of demonstrated that last week. You want to avoid charts and graphs as much as possible when you're creating presentations today. You want to use visuals like, the ones that you've seen on my slideshow. If you were, like, for instance, if you were to say that 90% of sci-fi fans prefer Star Wars over Star Trek, don't use a formal graph for that. It makes it more boring, right? You want to use pictures of the movies with a big 90% right on the side, on the side of the slide. Blah. On the side of the slide. So yeah, you want to use pictures of the movies with like, a 90% or something, right? So it's better to create more emotional visuals rather than like charts and graphs types of visuals, because we remember better when we attach an emotion to it. So more, if you attach a picture of Star Wars, that's a little bit more of an emotional type of picture rather than a chart or graph. And then we have emotive storytelling. Attaching emotion to story makes it memorable as well. This is the best way to remember anything, is attaching emotion. So think about the memories in your life that stand out the most. They are emotional, no? Right? A picture is worth 1,000 words and 1,000 emotions. So yeah, just think back to any of like the times in your life that are most memorable to you, right? If you think back, just think about some of the biggest events, it's always going to be very emotional. So emotive storytelling, when you attach emotion to your story, that is the most memorable. Okay. And shocking statistics, don't gloss them over, draw attention to them. Make this the big point. Your shocking statistics should be like boom in your face and a pause, and really elaborate on it. Don't ever gloss over. I've seen too many people, especially students, gloss over really important, shocking type of statistics. They just kind of go, oh, blah, 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 and just keep going, and they don't really make it stand out. Like if you were talking to a friend, right, and you were excited about that statistic, that's how you want to convey it as a presenter. You want to, really get into it and make it the star point. All right, so yeah, and like I was saying with the evocative visuals, I don't even need to keep going over this, I don't think, but visuals wield a very different power over words. It's one thing to read or hear something, and it's a completely different experience to see it represented through like a picture or a video. So you can use images to add impact to the data you're presenting. And like I was saying earlier, instead of using that graph, add some illustrations that properly present the point you're making. And that's it about evocative motions. And here's an example, actually. Does anyone know where this image is? Okay, I'm getting a bunch of no's. This is in New York. Right? This wall is the 9/11 Trade Center wall with everyone's names inscribed on them that passed away. And this one picture, just a single rose on that wall, it really evokes a lot of emotion. So when you use images, that's the way we remember your stories and remember even statistics and everything so much better. Just by, seeing a picture like this, really, it makes you think, right? It connects you to the presentation. So if we just throw up text on the screen, it doesn't really impact you that much, right? Looking at this right here, actually I need to minimize this so I can actually read it. It says more than 2,000 tropical forest plants have been identified by scientists as having anti-cancer properties. That's pretty powerful. However, it's not very powerful in the presentation itself because all it is text there, right? But when you add a picture to it, it creates more of an emotional connection. Now, what I would do here is I would just leave maybe one or two of the words, right? Instead of having like this whole sentence up here, this whole quote, right? You might want to say anti-cancer properties. That's all you would need, right? Because I'm speaking to you. I have narration here. Right? It's not like you don't know what I'm saying, right? You're listening to me, and you don't have to read while I'm talking if you just have something like anti-cancer properties. So you want to try to minimize the text as much as possible. It makes it more powerful and more engaging. It's just there to enhance what you're saying. So anytime you attend a presentation, I want you to think of why it inspired you or why it didn't inspire you. It always comes down to how that person delivered the story. I'm sure some of you have seen now the Power of Introverts by Susan Cain on TED Talks. She does a really good job of storytelling, of delivering the story. So I'm just going to show you the first part where she tells the story and how she connects it to the message. So I want everybody to listen here so that we can actually talk about it for a moment. Cancer properties. Yeah, so Ronald's asking me, so in this slide that I was just showing, you would remove all the words except anti-cancer properties and speak the rest orally. Yeah, I would. Yeah, and you don't have to. You could put the whole sentence there like that. That's fine too. But I think it's a little more powerful when you don't have to read something on the slide. If it's just a phrase or maybe a word, I think that's a lot more powerful than having a whole sentence up there. Unless it's a very, very powerful quote, and you actually put quotations around it and you show the picture of the person that said it, like Einstein or something. I think that's a good way. And then you read the quote, I think that's an okay thing to do. That's a really good thing to do. But yeah, when you're given like statistic or something like that, or you're making a point about an idea, I think it's better to stick with a phrase or a word. Yeah. Okay, so here is Susan Cain, and I'm just going to show you the beginning here of her delivery of a story and how she engages you. And she also uses another one of the 5 elements that we were just talking about, right? Let me go back to that other slide. It was the 5 types of star moments, right? She uses a couple of things here, so I'm going to ask you about that here in a second, but I'm going to have you watch this.
When I was 9 years old, I went off to summer camp for the first time, and my mother packed me a suitcase full of books, which to me seemed like a perfectly natural thing to do, because in my family, reading was the primary group activity. And this might sound antisocial to you, but for us, it was really just a different way of being social. You had the animal warmth of your family sitting right next to you, but you were also free to go roaming around the adventure land inside your own mind. And I had this idea that camp was going to be just like this, but better. I had a vision of 10 girls sitting in a cabin, cozily reading books in their matching nightgowns. Camp was more like a keg party without any alcohol.
Okay, so far, what is she doing? She's done a couple of things here already. Anybody want to chime in on the chat there? What kind of emotional things has she done? She used humor. Okay, good. Yes. Storytelling to compare the situation. Yep. What about that suitcase, right? I was talking about props earlier, right? That engages you. You're like, hey, what's in that suitcase? It gets your attention. Yeah, absolutely, Leon. Props. And another thing she did was she used visual language. Visual language, when we describe a scene where you can see it in your head, right? That's what she was really good at, right? You could actually picture what she was saying. She was describing it in such a way that you could see it. That is extremely connecting, engaging, right? Yeah, exactly, Leon. She talked about the girls in the pajamas. You could see them, right? You can just visualize in your head like kids sitting in camp with all their pajamas, like sitting around reading, right? You can see what she's saying because she's describing it to you visually. And the best storytellers, the best comedians are always great storytellers. The big politicians that make it big, they're usually great at putting visuals in your head. Any author that makes it big, they are always amazing at putting visuals in your head. So here's a little bit more.
And on the very first day, our counselor gathered us all together, and she taught us a cheer that she said we would be doing every day for the rest of the summer to instill camp spirit. And it went like this. R-O-W-D-I-E, that's the way we spell rowdy, rowdy, rowdy. Let's get rowdy. Yeah.
And what did she do that right there? She did a dramatization, a reenactment, a skit type of thing, right? And that really grabs your attention and pulls you in. So performance, presentation is a lot about performance.
So I couldn't figure out for the life of me why we were supposed to be so rowdy, or why we had to spell this word incorrectly.
You notice the long pause, right? She paused, she allowed the audience to respond. She stopped. She didn't try to jump in or, keep talking or anything. She had a nice long pause there.
But I recited the cheer. Along with everybody else. I did my best. And I just waited for the time that I could go off and read my books. But the first time that I took my book out of my suitcase, the coolest girl in the bunk came up to me and she asked me, why are you being so mellow? Mellow, of course, being the exact opposite of ROWDIE. And then the second time I tried it, the counselor came up to me with a concerned expression on her face, and she repeated the point about camp spirit and said we should all really work very hard to be outgoing. And so I put my books away back in their suitcase, and I put them under my bed, and there they stayed for the rest of the summer. And I felt kind of guilty about this. I felt as if the books needed me somehow, and they were calling out to me, and I was forsaking them. But I did forsake them, and I didn't open that suitcase again until I was back home with my family at the end of the summer. Now, I tell you this story about summer camp. I could have told you 50 others just like it. All the times that I got the message that somehow my quiet and introverted style of being was not necessarily the right way to go, and that I should be trying to pass as more of an extrovert.
So right there, that's the key point. She built you up with a nice story, right? And then she tied it to the message of what she wants to tell you, her whole point, right? So that was a nice build up. She grabbed your attention with story, with the prop, with the dramatization, right? She had nice pause. And then once she got the story completed, she told you why she was telling it. So that right there, excellent opening to any presentation. And now for data like statistics, you can use a quote. This is a different and impactful way to show a statistic. Or, like I was saying earlier, you could actually just put $5 million, right? Or the word 5 million, sorry, on the actual screen next to maybe his face, right? Let me pull this down real quick. So instead of having the whole quote, which is good too, right? You could just put 5 million or 5 million songs on this actual slide. And you could say, we are selling over 5 million songs a day now. Isn't that unbelievable? 5 million songs a day. And then when you end the quote with the last sentence, you would switch to, instead of it saying 5 million songs, then you would want to have up there 58 songs, and you could say, that's 58 songs every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And that was a quote by Steve Jobs. Right? So as long as you're giving credibility to the source and you're saying who the quote is coming by, that's your oral citation. And many of you were having a little bit of a problem with citations in your first assignment. So make sure you work on that throughout the semester. Make sure you cite everything. If you're not doing a narration, right, orally like I am right now, and you're not orally citing it, then you need to make sure it's on the actual paper somewhere. Always cite your sources. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. And that brings us to the 3 pillars of public speaking. All right. We have ethos, the appeal to trust or credibility. Okay. And we have pathos, the appeal to emotion. And finally, logos, the appeal to logic. So you need all 3 of these different types of appeals within a presentation, right? You need the credibility factor. Why are you talking to us? What's this got to do with us, right? The credibility factor. Why are you the expert? The pathos, which is the empathy, and finally logos, which is the logic, the other side of that. When? Yeah, before I go on here, I meant to talk about it a little bit more. So ethos, you want to answer questions like, why should the audience listen to me? What's my credibility? Does the audience respect you? Why should they? Does the audience believe you are of good character? Why are you a credible source here? Do they believe that you are generally trustworthy? Do they believe you are an authority on the speech topic? And if you're not sure, you need to make sure you give them a reason to believe that you are an authority on the speech topic. And it could even just be through personal story. And then we have pathos, right? That's the emotional appeal. So do your words evoke feelings of, sympathy, fear, love, do your visuals evoke feelings of compassion, envy? What kind of emotion are you evoking here? That's an important part to understand when you're putting together the presentation. What type of emotional appeal are you working with here? Maybe you're talking about competition, right? So are you trying to create emotions of fear or hate or contempt? I mean, that wouldn't be good, but you just always have to know what it is, what type of emotions that you need to appeal to within your presentation before you begin presenting it. So then we have, of course, logos, the logical part where we have statistics and data and the reasons why. And Aristotle said that without logos, you really can't persuade anyone. He said it was the most important of the three appeals. You can really only truly appeal to someone if you have some logic behind it. Okay. So, communication essentially has the following parts to it, right? You have the sender, right? That's you. You have the transmission itself. That's the message. The reception of the message. And finally, the receiver and the noise all in between. Now, the message can become distorted at any step of this process. Now, your top priority during all of this is to ensure that the message carrying signal is free from as much noise or interference as possible. So, just think about your personal relationships when you're communicating with someone. How many times have you had a misunderstanding or an argument in life because of noise issues? Right? You have the outgoing message, which is the transmission going out, and you have the ingoing message, which is what we're calling here the reception. So we have major issues on two ends here, right? You have transmission bias. This is the speaker's bias, which would be like credibility noise. So maybe the speaker is not believable or likable. That would create interference, right? Maybe they made a negative first impression. Maybe there's no common ground between that speaker and who's listening. Or maybe they're not communicating that common ground. That's the big issue. Right? Maybe there's no emotional appeal. Right? Maybe just the credibility, overall is just not established. So if they can't connect with you, or if you don't have any emotional appeal, you're not going to really have a lot of credibility. Emotional appeal is a big part of credibility. And then we have the semantic noise, right? And that could be anything from the environment around, is it an uncomfortable room, right? You have the expert, so you have all these different types of noise, and you read about this in your book. And then you have the reception noise. So that's how they're interpreting what you're saying. So there's a lot of noise. Make sure you read over in your book about all of this information. If you have any questions about it, let me know. But we always think about communication as a very linear process and it's simple, right? I gave them the message and they should get the message. But it's like playing telephone back when you were in elementary school. If you ever played telephone in elementary school, the whole class, right, would start with one person on one end of the room, and they would whisper something in someone's ear. And then that person would have to repeat that message, and they would repeat it all the way around the room. And it would change so many times, right? The teacher would then ask everybody, so what message did you get? And everybody got different messages because everybody heard something a little bit different, right? And reinterpret it even differently. Sometimes it was because somebody interpreted what the person said instead of just repeating exactly the message back. So there's a lot of noise in communication, right? So you have to think about all of that when you're planning your presentation. What type of credibility noise could I potentially, have here? What kind of noise could we have in the room? What kind of perspective might they have about me as a presenter? And that can all create, issues, maybe with them not even wanting to listen. All right. Nancy Dort says, the audience learns a lot about you based solely on how you appear the first time. So, what was your first impression on your first day here, in our presentation online class? How did that affect your mood or your attitude towards the class? Here, I'm going to open up the chat box so I can see you guys' responses. Oh, okay. He says, Leon says that my audio's going in and out a little bit. Is anybody else having that issue with my audio going in and out? Okay. Well, hopefully not. But first impressions are okay. Tony says yes. Okay. I'm not sure why I'm having any audio issues. That's not good though. Yeah, it might be my connection, huh? Well, that's no good. Is it getting worse or is it getting better or is it staying the same? Better? Okay. Let me know. Okay, if it's clear right now. Okay. All right. Let me know if it gets bad again. Hopefully it won't. That's no good. All right. So the audience learns a lot about you based solely on your appearance. So what would you say was your first impression of maybe your classmates, of the instructor, me, or maybe the class in general, and how this affected you? What kind of noise was there when you first started class the first week? Okay, so yeah, exactly. Tony says, nerves, didn't know what to expect. And that is noise, right? That is part of the noise message, right? How you feel about something, especially coming into like a new class environment or a new presentation, new presenter. Anytime you come in contact with anyone, it's always a little bit of a like, okay, I don't know what to expect. It's coming into the unknown, which is the biggest fear in the world, is the unknown. And that's why everybody's so afraid of public speaking, because they don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's afraid of death because they don't really know what's going to happen. They're afraid to get up on stage because they don't know what's really going to happen. Right? So nerves are definitely noise. I was biased because of being in a graphic class, and I'm an audio production student. Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, Dustin was a little like out of his element, I guess, which makes sense for, think about it this way, speak to your audience. So you weren't maybe seeing the connection between, okay, this is more of a graphic type class, whereas I am an audio person, right? So now I have to tell you why it's important for you, right? I have to connect with you in that first week and let you know this is important for you because of these different reasons. And that way now, right, we got rid of some of that noise. And, Leon says, a little nervous because I knew I'd have to present. Yeah, absolutely. So you have to think about what people are thinking, what might be going through their head. That's noise. And if they're questioning things or they're nervous about something or they're thinking about something, that's noise. And as a teacher, I deal with this all the time where I have to make sure I keep students engaged while I'm presenting in front of the classroom even, because now they have their cell phones. Before it used to be, they were just thinking about maybe what they were going to do for dinner or what happened earlier in the day, right? You go in and out of those thoughts all day, so that might even calm you down. And you thinking about yourself as a presenter, think about the fact that everybody is in their own head, right? So I was kind of telling you, some of you, when you were talking about being nervous and stuff before, I was telling some of you this before in your feedback and stuff. Everybody's in their own head all the time. And half the time now, we're even on our social media and everything. So when you're speaking to a group, they're trying to apply this to themselves. They're trying to put everything into their own perspective. And at the same time, they have other thoughts flitting in and out of their head about, oh, why was that person acting like that earlier? Or, hey, why was my friend mad at me? Or, so all of these other things are going in and out of their head. They're not completely focused on you. A lot of times when we get in front of an audience, we think, oh my God, they're focused on me. Not really. They're focused on themselves. And then they're listening to you to see how it can apply to them. So that's what you have to work on, is how can you connect with your audience and make it apply to them. That's what you have to keep your focus on. So, okay. Dustin says, oh, I like it now for what it's worth. Okay, good, because it's a super, super important class. This is going to, you might not realize it when you're in the middle of something like this, but a lot of times it takes until maybe a month or 2 or 3 months later when you're using the things you learned and you're like, oh my God, this is a lifesaver. I've had students, I've been teaching presentation work since 2006. So I have had students call me even from back in 2006 and say, thank you so much because this has applied to my life. Or, hey, could I get one of those outlines, from the class, or maybe some of that material, because now I'm, in sales, or now I'm doing this and I have to present. And that class was great. So this class is super important for you guys. So hopefully you like it. All right. So when you introduce yourself, all audiences look for similarities and differences. And think about this in terms of any communication. Let's say somebody comes to your house and you're meeting them for the first time. You're immediately looking for what are the similarities between us and what are the differences between us. And you're evaluating. And the audience does the same thing of a presenter. They try to find similarities and differences. So you want to focus on creating a sense of, as I'm said right here on the bullet point, focus on creating a sense of common identity between you and those you want to influence. And these are some funny pictures of one of our teachers here in the department. He So he's saying, smile, make sure that you come off as, warm, make sure that you're upbeat. If you're in their presence, make sure you shake their hands. Always ask questions. When you go into a room to present, or maybe even like virtually like I did right here with you guys, always start with asking questions, especially when you don't know anybody there. Get them talking, and try to be carefree and warm, not cold or aloof. You really want to make sure that you're connecting, engaging with people. So anyways, there's always room for improvement. And what I always say to my presentation classes is fake it till you make it. It's a performance. Be your role. You are the presenter. So yes, fake it till you make it. And the reason I say that is, as a presenter, you are performing a role, and it is your job to get into that role. No matter if you feel confident or not, no matter how you feel, you're having a bad day, you still have to present. You have to be that presenter. You have to be that performer. So rehearse it. And if you have to pretend like you're confident, or you have to pretend to feel certain things about the presentation, even if you don't, get enthusiastic. Get yourself into the performance of it. Become an actor when you present. You definitely don't want to be monotone, because you lose people that way. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. Fake it till you make it. And now I'm going to take questions and see how I can help any of you guys in any way. If you'd like to sign off, you're welcome to. If you'd like to stick around and ask me some questions, I'd like to encourage you to do that, because I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to make sure you're all super comfortable moving forward this week. I have a lot of grading to do for you guys over the next couple days. Give you a lot of feedback again. Any questions, guys? Oh, okay. We've got Tony asking, for this week's assignment, we'll be creating the actual PowerPoint. The actual PowerPoint. And Leon says, what was the name of that website? Which, I mentioned a few. Now, are you talking about SoundCloud or Prezi maybe? Cloud, Prezi. I'm not. Oh, presentation? Tony? Sorry. PowerPoint. Prezi. Oh, there we go. Prezi. Yeah, I sent that to you. Okay, I'm a little confused here. Let's see. I've got. Oh, okay, Dustin, the Prezi site. Okay. Tony, what do you say in their presentation? Yes, I will need to take out my outline and create the first draft presentation. Yeah. You know what? Let me go in and open the instruction sheet. This class has completely been revamped from last semester even. So let me just make sure that I don't tell you the wrong thing. Right, so let's see, CRP. Open up this class. We have we're going into week 3 here, right? So instructions. Let me open this up for you guys. All right, so I'm gonna go over this with you guys. All right. Allow you to imagine your future in the way you want to be perceived by potential employers after you graduate from Full Sail. This week you will create your first draft of the final presentation. Next week your classmates will be providing constructive feedback that you'll incorporate into your final draft. Okay. You will create a 3 to 4 minute presentation to pitch yourself to prospective employers as a recent graduate. In other words, you will be sharing your personal brand with your audience. Employers generally want to know what you have done, so as you project yourself in the future, use concrete examples of things you are planning, accomplish, to prepare for the assignment, research the following questions, and make notes to help plan your presentation. So, what knowledge do you have of the industry you are striving to enter? What is your target industry? What do you see in your next steps? What qualities? Okay, so those are the questions. And then we have create a unique future representation of yourself through a storytelling that portrays you as a valuable contributor to your industry. You will compose your presentation through the voice of your future self looking back on your success. Programs, courses, course descriptions, and goals for projects. So it will be completed in 3 phases. Right, so week 2, you had a presentation plan. First draft is week 3, final draft incorporating instructor and peer feedback, week 4. Use examples, skills, use a tool familiar to you for this assignment. One that allows for both visual elements and a recorded oral presentation. Presentation is fast, effective. Create a well-designed layout, making sure your message is concise. Okay, so what they say down here is you can do a slideshow like Keynote or PowerPoint. You could use Prezi.com, which I was recommending. I use that actually in some of my other courses I teach. I actually recommend that my students always use Prezi because I think it's fantastic. You know, if you don't have software on your computer, you just go to Prezi.com, you sign up as a student for free, and you can create your presentation right there with all their visuals, and you just record your voice narration if you have a built-in mic, or you can use somebody's mic and just plug it into your computer and record it that way. That is the easiest way to go. Or you could record it on your phone, upload it, and put it into Prezi. They also have Google Slides, and they have right here with Screencastify Chrome add-on. So yeah, you could use, if you have Chrome as your browser, you can use the Screencastify plugin. They don't call them plugins on Chrome, they call them extensions, Screencastify. But you can use that for Google Slides. I suggest using Prezi, you guys. If you have Keynote or PowerPoint, hey, that's a great thing to use. I love Keynote for recording. I use it all the time to record like videos for my classes in the music program, the music business program. I also use Prezi though. I think Prezi is the great way to go if you don't have the software on your computer. Let me go back to chat and see if y'all have any other questions. Okay, so Tony says I got it. Yeah, so yeah, you'll need to go ahead and create that first draft presentation. And that way it'll be so much better in your final week. All right, I hope that answers all your questions, guys. I hope you feel pretty comfortable at this point. If you need anything, let me know. I'm sitting right here by my phone as usual. If you need to give me a call or if you want to text me or anything, I'm here. Y'all have a wonderful evening and a great time with your presentation work this week. I hope I gave you some good tips. And again, if you want to chat anytime, let me know. Have a great week. Good night, Dustin. Thanks.